Anderton's custom shop video just dropped. Let's talk about it. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Let's talk about Anderton's new video. I was pretty excited for this one. The tour of the Gibson Custom Shop. We just talked about their tour of Gibson USA, and that was really exciting because Gibson worked with them to leak a few models early, give you a teaser, so it was fun looking at all the different guitars here. The problem with the Custom Shop is you can't really do that because they do so many custom one-off orders that you can't go, oh yeah, that's a new model that's coming. But anyways, let's get into the key points that I thought were really fascinating, and you can check the whole thing out in the description. We'll put a link. So around 403, Matt and Lee start talking about things that make the custom shop different, and they were talking about their wood selection, and Matt utilized a term called a flip matched top that I hadn't heard about. Gibson gets a lot of hate for not book matching their stuff. You take a piece of wood, you slice it straight down, and then you open it like a book, and then you get matching wood grain. So that's how you get like these V-shaped patterns. A lot of people like the whole book match effect. However, when you look at vintage bursts, that never really happened. And so, since the custom shop is trying to recreate those original bursts, it must be so frustrating to hear complaints like that when they're just trying to make them as historically accurate as they can. And I also found it interesting around the 538 mark when they talk about how they discriminate against the weight. They do save the really nice choice light pieces of mahogany for the custom shop, or on the rare custom order, a heavy piece. But our next stop in the journey was a really cool machine. So apparently they're using some sort of like a CNC type thing to get the basic rough top carve, and then they do a bunch of fine sanding afterwards. Do you see these ridges right here? There was actually a very short-lived Zakk Wylde signature model called the Rough Top. This is exactly what that looked like. They just didn't do the fine sanding. And in the descriptions of all those, they would say, yeah, that's how all of them start. So it was really cool to see that. And in many ways, this was a precursor model to the BFG. And later on, there were Zakk Wylde signature BFGs, so he dug that look. I think it'd be cool if they do another small run of Rough Tops, but give us some interesting flavors. And then at 7, I couldn't help but get a chuckle. Shots fired at Fender.
We're not a modular guitar company. We're not just able to, bolt on a neck on a body.
So he's talking about custom orders at that point where if you want to change your tailpiece and whatnot, since it's all set neck, they have to pre-plan all that stuff because it changes your neck angle. I never really thought about it from that standpoint. Now, the thing that's been getting a lot of people excited here are these necks. So that's like the Futura headstock style. We saw them on some original Gibson Explorers in the 50s. A lot of people associate it with the Moderne, but what these necks are right here, most likely, is the new Adam Jones Flying V, which by the way, those finally did come out. It was a limited edition run of 50 with a crazy $20K price tag. I was worried if they were gonna sell out, but it only took about 36 hours. I did end up getting peer pressured into buying one, but unfortunately mine is stuck in pre-order status with a well-known dealer. So we'll see one sometime in the future when Gibson gets it to them. But this got a lot of people talking. Is the Moderne gonna come back? Are they going to use this headstock style on it? Or other models that happen to utilize that? And those necks might debunk that. However, if you actually watch all the way to the end at 5540, he talks about the Futura and Modernes potentially coming back. I'm not necessarily that excited for, but if we have like a cool collector's edition run of it, yeah, I think that could exist. And maybe they can sell a few Modernes. And they also talk about historic Archtops returning, which is kind of big news because outside of custom orders, you really can't get those. I mean, imagine actually having L5s in stock at Sweetwater or something. But he also says in this segment that they're recording it the day that the mandolins launched, which by looking at old news articles appears to have been October 10th when all this was recorded. But along the same lines of what we were talking about earlier of how they're trying to be as historically accurate as they can, they talk about feeling the flames. And I guess the reason why you can feel the flame on certain examples is because the finish is so thin and the wood does have a little bit of depth to it. So that was cool to hear like their perspective on that. Now, are there ways to get around that and do other manufacturers do it? Yes, but it really comes down to that thin matching what they did in the 50s style. So before you go to the Facebook groups and say QC issue, you do need a little bit of a background on the history of what they're trying to create. And if you don't want that on a guitar, get yourself a custom shop Les Paul standard. Next thing I found interesting is the custom shop is still doing the 335 the traditional way, where they route out the F-hole at the beginning instead of at the end of the process, like we just learned USA is doing now. If that means anything to you, yeah, you gotta step up to custom shop for that. I thought the slack belt sanding machine was pretty interesting. I was always curious how they would do those back carves to some of those really nice arch tops and semi-hollows. Apparently just like that, and it takes a really delicate touch to not go too far. No two will be exactly the same. And then around 1420, they start talking about the style of truss rod that they use in the custom shop. They call it tubeless, and apparently it anchors at a different point in the neck compared to the USA's. What I'd really be curious to get a real answer from is the custom shop truss rods. A lot of times I'll find they're set with the threads sticking out past the nut. Why does that happen in the custom shop versus what they utilize in Gibson USA? Because I only ever find that on custom shop truss rods straight out of the factory. Around 1550, you can see some completed fretboards. They talk about the difference between celluloid inlays and the acrylic that USA uses. The reason why it's a premium product within the custom shop comes down to how flammable the real stuff is. And that's another historic thing that you have to learn. If you're upset that your R9 does not have real mother of pearl inlays, the original bursts didn't have it either. Only customs did. And this was another really eye-opening part for me. They start to talk about the true archtop guitars. You see the bracing on the backside? I never realized that was just part of one block of wood. I thought for sure that they had glued that stuff on there anyway. I realized that they took a big block of wood and they sanded it down, and that's why something like an L5 with a true carved top is a lot more expensive than the plywood construction of a 335. But this was just one of those things I never realized that was part of the process. It was pretty cool to see. But now 2138 has me pretty excited, guys. We see Gibson headstock veneers with dragonflies on it. It's abalone body with a mother of pearl wing, and this is at the desk of Master Luthier Doug Culbertson. They also named another master artisan of theirs, Matt Klein. I love having names like these. Gibson does not give their master artisans enough credit, in my opinion, and they're working on that. They're getting better. He wasn't even sure if he was supposed to be showing us this stuff, but the fact that there's more than one has me excited. You can see an entire sheet. We've got butterflies over here. I love my animal-influenced guitars, and to see where they cut it out, full sheet of mother of pearl over here, was really fascinating. I'm hoping these aren't boring acoustics and they're like really cool souped up Les Pauls. And if it's not, I'll just have to custom order myself a Dragonfly Les Paul. This next room was pretty interesting. I recently had somebody ask me, why are white Gibsons so much more expensive? You would think the burst colors would be because it takes a little bit more time to shoot. White has been giving Gibson problems, especially since their manufacturer changed up how they made the product or something like that. The white guitars, they get contaminated, so they have to have their own special little room right here as they're working on them. And apparently white loves to grab on the aniline dyes that's used on almost everything within the custom shop. So they have to be very careful, and that's why white guitars were very scarce from like 2020 to 2022. They're a little bit more readily available now, but they had to do some innovation. Now there's lots of guitars that you can see in the process, but again, you have to remember a lot of this is custom order basis. Even those Dragonflies we might not ever actually see. Gibson does so many one-offs that are fantastic, and the public never gets to see them. That's kind of why I started my channel, is to document things as we go. But I really like this Claro Walnut top Les Paul Standard. At first I just thought it was boring Koa, but no, this is exotic. It almost looks like it might be an entire walnut body and neck. I guess looking at the back now, that definitely still looks like mahogany. At 3607, to back that claim up, he actually says almost a third of what they do within the custom shop truly is a one-off for someone. 2832 goes back to our whole historic spec talk. They were talking about how Eddie Van Halen loved pickups that were drilled directly into the guitar. Apparently the custom shop tried something like that, and he said it didn't go well. So I'm kind of curious, what is he referring to there? Is he talking about the HP series that had no brackets and they just like loaded them from the back? Or is he referencing like the actual BFGs that were screwed into the top? That's the closest to what Lee's talking about here. I feel like the custom shop could get around to doing something like that. It would just end up looking like a custom shop BFG, which would have a very limited audience, but depending on how they can spice it up, could be interesting. It's nice to know that they're always trying to innovate within their regular custom division, not necessarily their reissues. Speaking of those mandolins, it was really cool to see a couple of these hanging up. Definitely small batch production. They do look quite phenomenal, but they come at a hefty price tag. Next up in the buffing room, we can see a couple of interesting things here, like we've got some sort of a Firebird going on. I really like this red top 335 with the gold back. There appears to at least be two of those, so that might be going to like a specific dealer as a pre-sold limited run. Lee thought this yellow Les Paul Custom was pretty daring, and I'd have to agree. However, I wonder if it just looks yellow and maybe it's like Extreme Buttercream, which is a great name, by the way, but here's like an aged white Les Paul for comparison. Looks like we got some sort of a flame top SG over here, and a couple of Access Customs. And then, hey, is there more than one of those walnut ones? Might be. At 4036, I was really impressed by these. Look at those crazy sparkle green customs. Apparently it's going to Japan, which doesn't surprise me, but it's also an Access Custom, but without the Floyd Rose. That is like perfect for me. I would review one of those. Those are my favorite types. And hey, would you look at that? It looks like an ES355 done up in Silverburst. Didn't see that the first time through. You don't see that color option too often on those. Maybe it's going to Adam. And they had a pretty cool dark sparkle green lefty Trini Lopez model. And hey, would you look at that? Doesn't that look familiar? We actually documented this as a mod collection guitar. So you can check out that episode here to learn all about the history of that particular one. Typically, the custom shop will not recreate mod collection pieces, but I have seen a few of these avocado ones come up since. At 4140, you can actually see white Lopez's, but they're black bound, which looks great. Now we've got some sort of like an interesting dark green Les Paul back here. Not exactly sure what that's about, but I was surprised to see this. So apparently this is a one-off for somebody, but that's a reissue of the Aurora Borealis finish. I'm kind of surprised that they would do that, seeing as they were like, hey, this is a limited edition run. And it wasn't super popular with most people, but it's kind of a collector's item at this point. But here you can see some of those flame ridges that he was talking about. Around the 43-minute mark, they talk about their parts cage. Some parts that they put on these custom shop guitars are really expensive. They can't just let anybody in there, because some employees might slip them in their pocket and sell them off on the side. They were talking about how an L5 tailpiece is like worth $1,200. I totally understand that they need some security in that place. And hey, wouldn't you know it, while editing this, they dropped a second video. I didn't think they were going to get access to this. They talked about the Murphy Lab. Now, Gibson keeps that under lock and key. You're not allowed to go in, but Tom Murphy said some interesting stuff. So here's the highlights to me. First off, how the checking occurs. Tom Murphy was saying the finish needs to be fully cured so it's not going to move with the wood. That's what causes it to shatter. That's why when you see me outside in the wintertime with like a brand new Les Paul, I'm not as scared about those things checking because it's not fully cured for quite some time. And I've never really had any big issues, but I also allowed them to acclimate between the cold outside, my sunroom, before bringing it back into the warm house. But even then I don't take them out in sub-0 degree weather. But this is all building upon how they're doing the new Murphy Labs. They used to do the whole razor blade technique, but it seems they're doing something different. And there's been rumors that they have like these big freezers in there, and that's why nobody's allowed in there, because it's like industry secret. You can't see our state-of-the-art fridges. Here's Murphy's words.
I did discover a new material and a new process to get a more convincing and authentic style or pattern of checking. That's all real. That is really cracked.
Yeah.
So that makes me think there's probably some truth to those rumors. They've reformulated the finish to naturally do what it's supposed to do. And maybe they have a way to accelerate the curing process to make sure that does happen when they put it in their magic boxes. Or maybe that's what they want us to think. I don't really want to know. Sometimes it's just fun to have some things behind doors. And then later on at 1550, they talk about that they pre-check it because the finish is unstable. In the very early Murphy Labs, the finish would just start flaking off of them after a little bit. Happened to my Johnny Winter Firebirds, happened to many of R9 reissues. I'm still a little bit untrusting of holding them back in my collection personally because of those issues, but it seems like they might have reformulated things. But around 1550, they talk about how they pre-check them like that because if they didn't, they don't know exactly how it would end up looking. So maybe they do help guide it in some way, because they were talking about customers asking, what if I don't want the aging at all? And they said, no, we can't do that because it's an unstable finish. It needs a little bit of direction to look right. Around the 1750 mark, Tom Murphy fights back against the people that are hating on aged guitars. I mean, they're not my favorite either, but he's like, yeah, who cares? I've got enough people on the books. We can sell them, so we might as well make them. Then a little bit later on, around the 21.5-minute mark, Tom Murphy actually says he does not like the super ultra heavy aged guitars. He just does it because there's a demand for them. He personally prefers something a little bit lighter. But even though we weren't allowed in the division, around the 23-minute mark is where we can see what is stock in all of the Murphy Lab division's toolkits. So like at 2244, you get introduced to the original keys that apparently they've replicated so everybody can use, that Tom uses to age some of these guitars. He also talks about using Scotch-Brite pads, heating up the finish, trying to make it look as realistic as possible. We later get into railroad spikes. And this right here is my absolute favorite part of the video. At 24:58, you get to see it on his face, his hesitation. Do I really want to do this on camera? People are going to cause a storm about this on the internet. Ding. It's beautiful. But that railroad spike thing was pretty cool. There's a bunch of different textures they can get with that. And then around the 26-minute mark, they joke about selling Tom Murphy replica spikes. They could do that, a limited edition run of 100 of them, sell them on April Fools just in case they don't sell out instantaneously for $1,000. It would be dumb, but it would be the coolest paperweight ever. So that's another 45-minute video that I covered a few of the highlights on. Please check out both of these new videos. I'm not trying to steal their thunder or anything. I just wanted to point out more attention to them because I didn't feel these last two videos got the attention they deserve, whereas their Gibson USA plant tour got tons of shares. Even though the custom shop in Murphy Lab is like brand new information as far as a recent good tour and info video about them. So links to those will be in the description, and I hope you enjoy your new guitar knowledge. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, consider subscribing. I post videos like this every day. And you might even enjoy this next one.